Mortal Kombat 1995 is still better than a lot of modern video game movies that we get today. And it definitely isn't because it has better effects, because it really doesn't. And it's not because the acting is incredible or that we got the brutal, bloody version of Mortal Kombat, the one that we really want, the one that we crave for, and hopefully we're going to get it this year. No, this movie was way too clean for that, way too clean for a franchise that was built on fatalities and ripping people's spines out. This movie is really cheesy and it's dated as hell, and maybe the best way to describe this movie is awkward because, well, it is an awkward movie, really. But the thing is that modern game movies keep choking on is the fact that Mortal Kombat is still entertaining. That's it, really. We have a movie from 1995 with rubbery effects, PG 13 violence, some really stiff acting, and of course, we get the best soundtrack ever, everybody knows that. But it's still more fun to watch than the depressing amount of the video game movies made decades later with bigger budgets, cleaner CGI, some famous actors, and of course, the endless franchise planning. That's pretty insane if you ask me. Because really, what exactly is the excuse now? These studios have the technology, don't they? They have the money, they definitely have the fan bases, and they have all the games sitting right there in front of them. They have the people making YouTube movies about it, they have Reddit threads, fan arts, complaints, wish lists, all of it. The answer is not hidden somewhere, it's the fans are telling them what they want. And still they manage to make movies that feel like the people involved knew the title of the game, I guess, but they really didn't understood what the game was about, what the appeal was. And I think that's a big difference when it comes to the original Mortal Kombat. This movie knows what the people came for. It gives you the fighters, the tournament, the villains, the ninjas, Johnny Cage, Liu Kang, everything that you want from a movie. Scorpion, Sub-Zero. That's it. That's what the movie needs to be. It doesn't really waste time pretending that it is more than it needs to be or that it is bigger than the material, bigger than the game. No, it's just a silly movie about a silly game. And I say that with the utmost respect because I love the movie and I love the games. It, it just gives you Mortal Kombat. Not the perfect version, of course, not even close, but definitely an entertaining one. And yes, sure, I'll admit it, the nostalgia is a big part for me. Of course it is. I was around 10 when the movie came out, the games were massive. Mortal Kombat felt like a really, really big deal. It had it had that energy that was consuming every kid. It was the thing that everybody was talking about on the playground. Your parents probably didn't love Mortal Kombat, but we did. That made it even better. Scorpion, Sub-Zero, oof. That was the shit. The music, awesome. The logo, a fucking dragon, fuck yeah. You know, the whole thing felt like it was something happening right now. It wasn't some old brand being dragged out of storage because the studio needed money or just, another IP or something. I still have the DVD on my shelf, so yeah, there's definitely nostalgia attached to it. I'm not going to pretend I'm watching this with zero emotion, but nostalgia is not a free pass. I'm not giving it a free pass, of course. Plenty of things from childhood fall apart when you revisit them. You put them on and realize very quickly the only reason you love the movie or you love the game was because you were 10 years old and your brain was not really developed yet. So nostalgia gets you through the door, but it definitely doesn't keep you in the room, I guess. And Mortal Kombat keeps you in the room because the movie actually flows. It moves. It has some rhythm. And it sounds really basic, but modern movies keep proving that basic apparently is very difficult. You know, this film gets you to the island. It sets up the tournament, it gives you the characters, it gives them all clear rules, it gives you the fights you want, the villains we want, it gives you all that weirdness. And, not a lot of explanation. It was all really vague. And I think that's pretty cool. I think that's more than enough. And a lot of video game movies have the skin of the game, I guess, but not really the, what do you call it, the blood underneath or within. They have the costumes and the logos and the big name and the awesome trailer and all those little references that fans are supposed to clap for or clap at. But the movie itself, for me, oftentimes feels really empty. And I think they keep confusing recognition with entertainment. And you can feel it in so many of them. Hitman, for instance. It takes a game about patience and tension, clean kills, and cold precision, and it basically turns it into a very basic action movie. Max Payne, for instance. We get the code, we get the snow and the misery and the revenge, and still, they forgot to add some actual energy. Warcraft, same thing. It throws so many names and factions at you and a lot of fantasy that you don't know what to do with it. And Uncharted. I was hoping that this would be an awesome movie, and I was bored out of my mind. We get some treasure hunting and some danger and some stupid jokes and some famous actors. Fuck. And somehow it feels like an adventure without any danger. Borderlands, for instance. All the big names, bright colors, and a lot of chaos built into it. And yeah, it still feels like it was going nowhere and nobody wanted to be in the movie. And I think that's not a list of unlucky accidents. I think it's a pattern. These movies keep walking up to a simple idea, and for some reason they make it worse. They overthink it, they sand it down, they add lore where momentum should be, I think, and they add a famous face where, personality should be, personality of the game. They add a lot of CGI, and I hate CGI, I'm allergic to it. And instead of fun, they add the CGI. They should add more fun to it. Or they go overboard with the fun and a lot of stupid jokes that fall flat. They take something that is weird and specific, and for some reason they make it boring. And Mortal Kombat from 1995 doesn't feel afraid to be what it is. It's dumb enough to be honest, and I mean that as a compliment. They know the world is ridiculous. I know the world is ridiculous. Everything about Mortal Kombat is ridiculous. Gods, monsters, magic islands, soul stealing, ninjas with supernatural powers. But still, it's awesome. The movie doesn't look at that and go, how do we make this a respectable movie? No, they go, fine, fuck it, let's do it. That's the confidence these game movies need. And that confidence, I think, covers a lot of damage, really. That Sang Sung saying, your soul is mine, that's not subtle. Good, it shouldn't be. Nobody came here for subtle. Or Scorpion yelling, get over here. It's pure fan service before everything was terrified of being what it was and everything was being focus tested. The movie knows that the moment matters, and it just lets it hit, boom, boom, and then it moves on. And yeah, I think that's what it is about, And now, of course, I get it. The violence, it is a real problem. I don't want to dodge that. A bloodless Mortal Kombat movie is absurd. This franchise that became famous because it was nasty, it was the arcade game that felt forbidden. The fatalities were the point of it. Kids talked about them. We talked about them. Parents complained about it. I wasn't allowed to play the game, but I did. And that was that little edge that was so important to it. So, yeah, the movie being this soft, the original one, it is ridiculous, sure. Some fights should be harder and more brutal. Some of it should last longer, and some of the kills should feel more nasty. So, if you're adapting Mortal Kombat, you cannot act like blood is awkward or, well, how do we get around it? But even watered down, this movie still understands the basic fantasy better than many adaptations. And, this movie, it gives you that arena feeling. It gives you the lineup, the villains, all of it, the personalities. It doesn't bury the fun under 12 layers of setup for future sequels. Like the new Mortal Kombat from, what was it, 2021? Something like that. It does not make you wait 2 hours for the thing to be the thing that you came to see. That's where the 2021 Mortal Kombat movie comes in. That movie annoyed me so much. Yes, it had better effects, more violence, and all the modern tools. And somehow it spent so much time circling around the actual tournament that you start wondering, why is this movie so scared of being Mortal Kombat? It adds Cole Young, a character that nobody walked in the theater asking for. We have the actual game characters standing right there. How do you have Mortal Kombat and make people wait for Mortal Kombat? That is the kind of modern nonsense that I'm talking about here. And The 1995 movie, it definitely has less blood, less polish, and worse effects for sure. It looks theatrical. It looks like a school play. And the new stuff often looks better and it feels less direct, more serious, more violent, more detailed, and also a lot less fun and less entertaining. It's not progress. It's just having, better equipment, better tools, but worse instincts, worse, you know, feeling towards the games, towards the movies, I guess. And this is why the nostalgia angle matters for me. And not in a cheap way. I get it. Yes, the original hit at the right time. Sure, the games were hot, really hot. They were not just recognizable IP. They felt like a cultural moment. The controversy? No, controversy. Yeah, I guess. The arcade machines, the characters, the fatalities, everything. It's you have to strike iron when it's hot, and Mortal Kombat was hot. And a lot of the current game movies don't feel like that. They feel like, exercises for brands and IPs. Mario, for instance, is massive, obviously. Sonic is successful. Minecraft, it's huge. But how much of that is current game feeling alive and dangerous and hot at the moment? And how much of it is really nostalgia and just family branding and, parents just taking kids to see something they recognize? It's not an insult, I guess, but it definitely is really different. I didn't love the Super Mario Bros. Movies. No, I didn't. But I get why it worked. It gives you Mario, the colors, the music, the worlds, and all that. I get that. I recognize that. All of that, sure. But, you know, it's not what I want. The Sonic movies aren't really my thing either, but at least they understand that Sonic should be fast, loud, and colorful and ridiculous. Detective Pikachu, for instance, they commit to the Pokemon world just enough so you can see why people connect with it. I understand that. I get that. So I'm not saying that, the old stuff is good and the new stuff is bad. That would be a little bit too easy. But the real split for me is this. Some movies understand the appeal and some only understand branding. Mortal Kombat understands the appeal. It's not a great movie. Of course not. It's not clean. It's not respectable. It's definitely not critic approved. It's way too cheesy, too stiff, and too soft, and it's way too 90s. But I love 90s movies. But it's great at being watchable. It's great at giving you just enough of the game to feel like the game as a movie. It's great at not wasting your fucking time. And honestly, I respect that more than modern movies that look expensive and feel dead. Because boring, for me, that's the real failure for all movies. You can be cheesy and simple and ridiculous. That's not a problem. The real failure for me is taking something that should be fun and making it feel like homework, like an obligation, like me, having to sit through 2 hours of movie with nothing happening on screen. Sanding everything down. And that's why this movie still lands for me. That's why this movie still is awesome, I think. It's not because I'm blind to the flaws. I see them. The movie is full of them, of course. But the flaws don't kill the fun. A lot of the modern game movies are the opposite. They avoid some of the old mistakes and, they still forget to be entertaining. I think that's even worse. Just give me the dated effects if the movie has energy and give me the cheesy lines if the movie has personality. I want the awesome, ridiculous soundtrack. Give me Scorpion and Sub-Zero and Sonya, Raid and all of it, Give me a tournament that actually feels like the center of the story. I don't want polished and expensive and brand safe. I don't like that. Mortal Kombat 1995 is dated. It's kind of bad in all the obvious ways. It's not brutal enough. It has aged, not gracefully, I might add. But it's entertaining. And after all these years, with the DVD still on my shelf, I can still put it on and enjoy the ride. A lot of modern video game movies have more money and technology and famous actors and polish, and they have less excuse, and still they can't beat Mortal Kombat.